Time. Without objection.
Madam President, I want to thank Senator Harkin because he and I were spending a little time together in your great state, and he and I agreed that one of the issues that ought to be talked about a little bit more involves the stark choice that we're facing in November, in large part due to the budget of Paul Ryan, who is now the vice presidential nominee for the Republicans. And Governor Romney has endorsed and embraced the Ryan budget. And I think, and it was Senator Harkin's idea, that we ought to explain that Ryan budget. So I'm going to do my best to talk about it as the chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee, who has the jurisdiction of highways, bridges, transportation systems, and the environment. And also just make a couple of comments about Medicare, and I know Senator Harkin's going to go into that in great depth. I just want to make sure everybody understands that what I'm talking about comes straight from the budget. So if you look at page 78 of the report accompanying the Ryan budget resolution, Mr. Ryan makes it clear that he wants to make devastating cuts to transportation. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean devastating. I mean 50% cut. That means about 1 million jobs that would be lost, Madam President, if that Ryan budget were to go into effect. We're talking about construction jobs. We're talking about an area that has been hit so hard. We still haven't come back from this recession, and it's the one thing we learned in your great state at that convention was the depth of this recession, the worst since the Great Depression. And what a time Paul Ryan picks to bring devastating cuts to the construction industry. And I mean by that the businesses, because we are talking about mostly jobs in the private sector, not the public sector. And we have to think about the fact that 70,000 of our bridges are deficient, and 50% of our roads are not in good condition. So we're not only, we know bridges fail, we've seen it happen. We're not only talking about devastating cuts to construction industry and workers, but a devastating situation for people who use our bridges, the 70,000 of which are structurally deficient, and our roads, which need help. So no country can lead the world if we can't move people and goods, and we cannot be a world power. And yet when it comes to transportation, the Ryan budget is a jobs killer. I'm talking about 1 million jobs would be lost in the private sector mostly, and he would put our family at risk by neglecting our bridges, our highways, and our transit systems. Now, President Obama, on the other hand, and frankly, a lot of us here on both sides of the aisle reject that notion that we can walk away from rebuilding our infrastructure. So this is a very, very key issue. Now, I said I speak to you as the chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee, and I've talked a little about public works. What does the Ryan budget do to the environment? Now, what he does is he undermines the public protections, the health protections provided by the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, and other landmark laws. If you look at page 13 to page 15 of his budget, you'll see that he cut $62 billion for activities like protecting our drinking water, protecting our air, preserving our public lands. Let's face it, when kids get asthma, when people are too sick to go to work, when children are too sick to go to school, and when people die prematurely from a heart attack because of the air quality, there are no real savings. He says he's cutting $62 billion from the budget. Let me tell you, for every dollar you spend on clean air protections, we know we get $30 worth of benefits. In 2010 alone, the Clean Air Act prevented 160,000 premature deaths. You ask a family that may lose the breadwinner in that family, did we save money No. 1.7 million asthma attacks, 130,000 heart attacks, 86,000 emergency room visits, 13 million lost work days, and 3.2 million lost school days. In 2010, the Clean Air Act prevented all that. So what's the point, Mr. Ryan? What's the point? It will cost the American public dearly, out of their pocket and out of their lives, if they suffer more asthma attacks, emergency room visits, lost work days, school days lost, more heart attacks, and premature deaths. That is short-sighted. The American Lung Association, they're not Republican or Democratic. They say 40% of our population lives in areas with unhealthy levels of smog or toxic soot. So let's remember, when you look at a budget, it is a set of values that accompany the numbers. And I don't think it's an American value to say to our people, we don't care if they get sick, they miss work, they go to the emergency room. Finally, I want to just set the stage for Senator Harkin's very in-depth discussion about health care. I'm just going to talk about Medicare and Medicaid as someone who is privileged to represent, along with Senator Feinstein, the largest state in the union. The most senior citizens, we have almost 38 million people. So whenever we talk about this Ryan budget and how many people get hurt, believe me, I speak from the heart when I say we can't let it happen. The American people know Medicare, they like it, and they don't want to change it. Now, the Republicans tell you their plan saves Medicare. But just ask someone who's going to be the victim of a Paul Ryan plan if we don't stop it. That person will find that they're getting a voucher. They're not getting Medicare. Medicare will be gone. They'll get a voucher, and experts tell us, and the studies show, that voucher will be $6,000 a year short. And imagine an older person who really is struggling for a quality of life, having to have that added worry of not knowing if she will find or he will find health insurance. Look, putting Republicans in charge of Medicare is like putting the Cookie Monster in charge of your favorite bakery. And I'm not overstating it. You would not put the Cookie Monster in charge of your favorite bakery. Well, we can't put the Republicans in charge of Medicare. And I want to prove why. This isn't just rhetoric. Listen, in 1995, Newt Gingrich said he thought Medicare, in his words, should wither on the vine. In his 1996 presidential campaign, Senate Majority Leader Bob Dole bragged, quote, "I was there, fighting the fight, voting against Medicare, because we knew it wouldn't work in 1965. Really? Really? Medicare works. Why would we end it? We're not going to end it, but Paul Ryan gets into power, he'll have a good chance of ending it with his friend, presidential candidate Mitt Romney, who has endorsed the Ryan budget. Listen to what Michael Steele said, the head of the Republican National Committee in 2009. Quote, "I mean, the reality of it is this single-payer program known as Medicare is a good example of what we should not have happen." So, Ryan budget, look at page 53, shreds Medicare. Shreds Medicare. And I will tell you this, as if he hasn't slammed Medicare enough, look what he does to Medicaid. He cuts it by more than $800 million. And where are low-income families going to go? And again, Senator Harkin is the expert, but I can tell you this, so many of our elderly rely on Medicaid for nursing home costs. I will tell you, it is a disaster. And we know that in addition to all of this, these terrible cuts, and by the way, when Paul Ryan says and attacks President Obama for cutting money from Medicare, what he isn't telling you is the president has found savings from overpayments to providers, and you know what he does with the money? He puts it right back into Medicare, extends the life of the program for 8 years, closes the donut hole to help seniors, and gives senior citizens preventive health care, well checkups and the like. So really, that does take, to quote President Clinton, a lot of brass. Because the fact is, President Obama has strengthened Medicare, he's extended the life of Medicare, and what Paul Ryan does is he takes those cuts and he gives tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires. I'll yield to my friend.